Attention, go. We have a start. All three crews off cleanly in their first 10 strokes. As the crews come even with our launch, the media launch, it looks like it is Brown by a deck over the Spartans. Michigan State maybe a foot or two over Princeton. Brown really coming out of the gate like gangbusters here, pushing out to a half length over Princeton. Princeton getting back on terms and ahead of Michigan State. Princeton has settled into their base cadence. Brown staying very high. Typical Brown early season race, they row very high. Princeton is getting more of a bite on it now, pushing back into Brown, but they are still a third of a length back. Michigan State has deck overlap with Brown. It looks like Brown and Princeton are threatening to pull away from Michigan State's second varsity. Princeton is pushing back into Brown, getting back to deck to a one deck margin. Michigan State open water behind Brown right on the Princeton stern. It's getting a little bit choppy as we come into the first 500-meter mark. Brown taking a press before that 500, moving back out to a third, maybe a half of a length advantage. And it is Brown through the first 500 at 139. Princeton a third of a length behind. Michigan State open water behind Princeton, maybe just a seat or two open water behind. Not out of this race yet. Brown taking another press. Princeton trying to respond. Those of you on the video feed can see it's getting choppier and choppier as we go down this course. This headwind is really challenging these crews in this cold, sunny day. Princeton trying to press back into Brown. Crews have stayed at the same margin for the last 500 meters or so since the start. Again, it is Brown between a third and a half of length, bouncing back and forth. Michigan State falling off the pace a bit, maybe a half of a length behind Princeton. Open water behind Princeton, excuse me. Through 750, it is still Brown, a third of a length over Princeton. Princeton, a length and a half over Michigan State. Brown has come down off of that high cadence from the start. They are rowing at 36. Brown taking another press, but Princeton is actually pushing back in as Brown tries to take a high cadence push. Great racing between these two crews. Michigan State trying to get back into this race, but it looks like this race is starting to escape them. I think if Princeton can just get some traction as we come into the 1,000, they can get back on terms. We'll really see some action in the third 500. It is still Brown, 3 seats over Princeton. Princeton a length and a half over Michigan State. Brown through the 1,000 in 3:29. As they come by the varsity fours from the previous race, still Brown pressing away from Michigan State, staying right with Princeton. Princeton 3 seats behind. Coxswain's looking across, making eye contact as they call for moves from their crews. This wind is starting to pick up a little bit more in the third 500. Still Brown, sitting right on Princeton, 3 seats up. Michigan State still staying a length and a half behind Princeton. So we come to 750 to go. We still have Brown, 3 seats. Princeton, a length and a half over Michigan State. Somebody's got to start to make a move here. And it looks like it's going to be Brown. Brown calling for a press. You can really see their stern pair starting to lean into this wind, getting a little more traction, calling for a move that's gotten them about 2 more seats advantage. Brown, Coxswain looking across to Princeton's 5 seat. Princeton's trying to respond, had a little bit of a bobble in the wind. We're at 650 to go. Brown got about 2 seats off of that press, but Princeton is responding. They've gained those 2 seats right back. We have Brown maybe 4 seats over Princeton. Princeton a length and a half, maybe a little bit more over Michigan State. Princeton has taken a move to get back those seats that they yielded on Brown's move as we come into 500 to go. We have Brown through at 520, Princeton pressing back. It looks like they're only a seat down. Princeton pushing. Princeton getting on terms with Brown. Princeton getting their bow ahead. Princeton is ahead by a foot and moving. Princeton ahead by a seat. Michigan State falling off the pace. Princeton is taking an incredible move, getting ahead by a deck and still walking. Brown bow ball on 2 seat. Princeton still on the walk. Tigers are marching. Brown bow ball on Princeton's 3 seat. Can Brown respond? The Tigers are taking seats at will away from the Brown Bears. The Spartans are behind. Princeton is pressing away, getting their bow ball well ahead of Brown. They're at a half of a length advantage and walking. Still walking away as we get to 2:50 to go. Princeton is taking control. They stayed poised through the first 3/4 of this race, stayed in contact with Brown, weathered a storm at 7:50 to go, and pushed ahead at 500 to go. It is Princeton by 3/4 of a length. Coxon on bow ball. Coxon calling for more. Princeton ahead of Brown, trying to break open with 150 to go. What a move. Princeton Coxon is looking at that Brown bow ball as we're at 75 meters to go. Brown's not going to have enough to catch them. Princeton trying to break open in the last 50 meters. What a move by Princeton as they will take this second race of the NCAA program. Princeton's second varsity 8 through at 7:13. Brown a length behind. What a race.